Greetings, everyone. Jugram Haschwalth here to discuss my Okay, yeah, that's not working. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Shit. Alright, look. I thought we were gonna do something clever here with the wig and everything, but that's not gonna work. I don't know how any human being could fight with hair like that. It just gets everywhere. It's just not practical at all. But I do have my friend's shield, so at least there's that. Okay, so this video admittedly took me a little while to get out. I think I said I was going to do this way back in like January. I decided to wait for a little bit because this was right around the time that Haschwalth and Uryu began their fights. And, you know, Haschwalth steps out of the darkness. He still has Yuha's power, and he's just like, you know, I've seen everything in the future. You know, anything you do is futile. I will stop you. And then Uryu's like, I can change fate. So I decided, all right, I'm going to wait on this because there's probably going to be some big revelations with Haschwalth's character. This is going to be the final battle between him and Uryu. It's going to be fucking intense. We're probably going to find out what the balance power finally does, and more on maybe his past or something like that, why he's in league with Yuha, shit like that. And it's just going to be, I mean, this is like the secondary antagonist of this entire fucking arc. He's been shrouded in mystery for so long. We're finally going to find out the real Haschwalth. We're finally going to find out what makes him tick. And when he does die, which I think we all expected him to die, I mean, that's just how this goes, but when he does die, we thought it was going to be a well-executed scene and that he was going to pass away with some sort of dignity and honor. Well, that went out the fucking window at Mach 6. Right, so Haschwalth is the prime example of a shit ton of build-up for a character that you think is going to do something really badass and cool, and it just gets shoved directly under the rug, and then beaten with a broom, and then taken to Goodwill where it's purchased by some lonely old man, where it sits in his house for 10 years until he dies of leukemia, and then it's immediately taken out of that and given to some relative who doesn't want to do anything with it, who just shoves it in their basement, and then their house catches on fire, and then that's the end. That's Haschwalth. That's a pretty good analogy there. I think I can go with that. Alright, so I guess this is the part where I give you guys a little bit of backstory for Haschwalth's character. All that's going to do is give you a lot of hype on something that might lead to, you know, grandiose heights, but it ain't gonna go there. Alright, so basically every few hundred years a Quincy is born that's kind of unique, a special Quincy, as it were. See, Quincy's whole deal is that they absorb reishi to access their powers, to summon their holy bows and their holy arrows, to use hearing kyaku, to perform Ranso Tenkai and Scalavre. All of this shit hinges on the fundamental aspect of their species, which is that they're able to draw in and utilize reishi. Now, Shinigami are also able to do this too, as well as bounce, but Shinigami aren't able to do it on the same level as Quincy's are. Quincy's could basically, you know, form it into malleable shapes, like strings for Ranso Tengai, and, you know, bows and crossbows, and as we see later with the Stern Ritters, they can even form solid objects like Lilibero's diagram gun, or Robert Acatron's pistols, you know, so they can, and swords as well, so they can do really cool shit with it. But every few hundred years, a Quincy is born that has the exact opposite ability. Instead of drawing power inward toward themselves using reishi, they can divide powers out to others, or give others a boost. And this is what Jugo was. Jugo was born as a Quincy, but he had no innate Quincy powers. He couldn't form a bow or anything like that, so instead he focused on traditional means of weaponry, like a sword. He increased his swordsmanship, and he was pretty good at using just a normal-ass bow and arrow, but he couldn't summon his own holy bow or anything like that. He lacked any sort of Quincy talent. He joins up with Bazby, and Bazby was really talented at a young age, the exact opposite of Jugo. He could summon his holy bow and do all that shit at a very young age, and so after Yuha appears in their country and begins burning down, you know, Bazby's family castle and kills his parents, and the forest where Jugo was living in with his pedo uncle, they decided to, you know, join together, and we're going to train, and we're going to fight against Yuha. So they train, and over the course of the next 3 years, Bazby's skills, they skyrocket. He gets way stronger, and meanwhile, Jugo, once again, can't do anything in the way of summoning reishi, but he does increase his, you know, basic combat ability and his physical techniques. So they eventually meet up with Yuha, and that's when Yuha drops the bomb on Jugo, that, you know, every few hundred years a unique Quincy is born. I was one of those Quincy's, as in Yuha, which is also, I guess, the first Quincy that came into existence. Once again, we have no idea where this is going, and with Bleach ending very, 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 very soon, we have no idea if this is ever going to be explained, you know, how the birth of Yuha was, you know, done or something, you know, how this whole thing worked, how the Quincy's even came into existence. Something to do with the Soul King, but that's all we know. But yeah, Yuha was born the same way. He was a baby that lacked any sort of, really any sort of life functionality. He was about to die, essentially. He couldn't see, couldn't hear, couldn't do anything. But every time someone touched the baby, that still sounds wrong, a part of Yuha's soul was given out to that person and then healed them of whatever problem they had, and then when that person died, that person's soul, plus the power that Yuha gave it as a child, it was nurtured and came back to it, and slowly through this method, Yuha was able to regain his sight and his hearing, and he became the, you know, the man we see today. However, he sees Jugo and says, "You're my other half. You're the other Quincy that was born in this same vein. Your powers are not the same as mine, though. You can't divvy out your power and then give it back. All you can do is divvy out your power to, like, it's kind of like a stat boost for those that are around you, as with the case with Bazby. While Jugo and Bazby were training, little did they know that the reason Bazby's strength increased so much, while he, you know, he was already a child prodigy, but the reason he got so much stronger was not because of his own talent, it was because Jugo was there, you know, constantly lending him his soul. So with that being the case, Haschwalth became Yuha's right-hand man. He became his other half. And then through some method, I don't know if this was always the case from the beginning or it was something that Yuha specifically did, but whenever Yuha had to go to sleep to replenish his powers, the abilities of the Almighty were given to Haschwalth, and then vice versa. Haschwalth put it, whenever His Majesty goes to sleep, I don the mask of the ruler, and then Yuha resumes being the father of the Quincy's. There was some sort of thing going on there, like maybe some biblical context of, you know, the father of the Quincy's, the god figure when he sleeps, but when he, you know, awakens, that's when the mask of the ruler appears, and he has to have, like, the stern ironclad rule. I don't know how this shit works. But yeah, so that's where we were up until the beginning of the series. When the first invasion occurred in the Soul Society, you know, Haschwalth was with him. Even before that, he was hanging out in the throne room, so we kind of understood, like, okay, this guy's going to be a pretty big deal. He was on the title page of the first chapter of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. He was in the background. We see him there, so we knew this guy was going to be a badass. And after, you know, the events of the first invasion, we figured, okay, this is going to be the secondary antagonist. This is going to be the guy we're going to have to defeat right before Yuha. He cuts apart Ichigo's fucking Tensuzangetsu with just one swipe of his claymore, just cuts that fucking thing in half, and we're like, all right, shit's on. This guy's going to be cool. And we don't really get much more of him the entire freaking invasion. There's a few scenes where he seems kind of important, like he confronts Shunsui at one point in the First Division barracks, but that doesn't really amount to anything. He just kind of walks in, and then Nanao erects her barrier, and then Haschwalth's like, huh, can't get through this barrier. Alright, I guess I'll just have to, you know, use my real power to break through it. And then right at that moment, he has to return to the Silburn to sentence Kangdu and BG9 for failing. So that's the first time we get to see his power, the balance. And, you know, he holds up his sword and then the scales appear and then he cuts, you know, Kangdu in half and kills him. We can assume he also did the same to BG9. There was a scene in Chapter 565, that's when he explains the whole, you know, when His Majesty goes to sleep, that's when I don the mask of the ruler. We see he doesn't really like Uryu all that much. There's kind of like, they're at odds there, you know, he's honestly constantly watching Uryu, like, I know you're gonna double-cross us. I fucking know you're gonna double-cross us, you know, just because you joined us because, you know, we killed your mother, why would you want to double-cross us there? But I know you're gonna double-cross us. And that's pretty much it. He goes to the Soul Palace, he opens up the gate, and they go. It's like he does important shit, but we don't know much about him, so, okay, you did that important shit. Alright, what's the big woo-ha here? Where are we going with this? He goes to the Soul Palace with Yuha and Uryu. He doesn't do anything there. He doesn't fight against any of the Zero Squad members or anybody like that. He just kind of stands in the background. Oh, no, wait, he summoned the Soldat. Yeah, that was your contribution to the invasion of the Soul Palace there. You summoned the Soldat fodder soldiers to be drowned and burned by Korinji's water attack, so that's good on you, Haschwalth. After that, he gets trapped by Kiryo's tree, and he really only serves the entire time to explain Yuha's power to the Zero Squad. Because we all know Yuha. Yuha's not the kind of villain that monologues on and on about his own abilities. until he absorbs God. Then he monologues on and on and on about his own abilities. But before that, it was Haschwalth that explained everything. After Yuha did the holy selection to power up the elite Sternritters, the Schutzstaffen, it's Haschwalth that steps up and explains what the Ashwallen is. After Yuha activates the Almighty and manages to fight against Ichibe and defeats him, that's when he explains what the Almighty power is. That's really what he serves. That's all he does. And then finally, fucking finally, he gets a battle. He fights against Basby. Most of that fight was also just a flashback, but that was a pretty solid battle. Okay, we're fine with that. Fights against Basby. We find out about his past. I'm like, alright, now I can actually conceivably give a shit about Haschwalth because I know a little bit about him. Up to this point, it was just like, he's a really powerful guy that has epic hair. Okay, but now we know his past. Now we have what drives him, what motivates him. Okay, well, at least a little bit. Alright, we got this. So he kills Basby. Alright, kills his only friend. Alright, that's pretty cold-blooded there. And then he confronts Uryu, and I've said this before in the in another video and when I was reviewing it, but that fight against Uryu and Haschwalth was such just a scattershotted fight. We didn't get a solid chapter with them fighting. It was mostly dialogue. They would cut away, you know, they would cut away for 1 week, and then we didn't get anything next week, and then we cut back to the next week, and the whole crux of that battle boiled down to, you know, Haschwalth has the ability of the balance, so he can redirect any misfortune that falls upon him into his friend shield. And then Uryu has the power of the antithesis, so he can basically reverse any situation in battle between the two combatants. So it's just this fucking game of Pong where you're just bouncing, you know, damage back and forth between each other. That's all it fucking amounted to until finally Yuha just decides, I don't even need him anymore. Arbitrarily. I mean, at that point, he already absorbed God. I don't know why it took him so damn long to think about. Like, he absorbed God in chapter 626, okay? And it wasn't until chapter 679 that he realized, oh yeah, I don't need Haschwalth anymore. I don't need any of the Sternritter anymore. Fuck this. And he just absorbs them all. And so, yeah, that's it. That he betrayed Haschwalth. What was the point of him being there? What was the point of Yuha being the whole, you know, you're my second half. You are my first son. Maybe not the first. Okay, that's weird because Lilia was apparently the first Sternritter. So maybe he meant Lilia was the first Sternritter to receive power directly from Yuha, but Jugo already had the power beforehand. Maybe something like that. I always wondered what's the ranking between Lilia, the commander of the elite Sternritters, and, you know, Jugo, the grandmaster of the Sternritters. I wonder where's the rank there. But that's the fucking least of our problems at this point. But yeah, Yuha decides after his fight with Ichigo, I don't even need the fucking Sternritters anymore. I don't even need my other half. He was completely useless. Didn't need him for shit, basically. You know, all I needed him to do was to explain my own powers, and now I can do that on my own. So what's the point? So he uses Holy Selection. He kills Haschwalth, and we get his dying words on the ground there with Uryu, and he just explains, you know, oh, I think I understand what you're doing now. Go and rescue your friends. Even if you fail, you have conviction, and that's all that matters. The last thing we see, and I think this was maybe like a last-ditch effort on Kubo's part to give him a little bit more character development, because I don't blame Kubo for this. He's clearly being rushed here, at least a little bit, from what we can see. I don't know if you've read the spoilers for the next chapter, 684, yet, but he's clearly being rushed if this is the case. And yeah, so the last remnants we have is when he's dying. We get to see that the button that Basby gave him all those, you know, hundreds of years ago is still embedded in the hilt of his sword. So he did still care about his friend, and then he dies, and that's it. That fight could have at least been a little bit more solid. We could have had at least one chapter dedicated to that fight. It was just so, it was everywhere. It was like we're seeing this fight while we're seeing Ichigo's fight, and I don't know if Kubo was trying to do some, like, duality here between the two, like Ichigo and Uryu are both having their hard fights at the same time, and they're both getting beaten down. I don't know if he was going like, oh man, all hope is lost. They're both being defeated at the same time. But it just ended up being it was mostly focused on Yuha versus Ichigo, rightfully so. Main character versus main villain, but the, you know, Uryu, who could be considered like one of the secondary main characters of this arc, because it's all about Quincy's, of course, and I mean, he didn't appear for like half of it, but you know what I mean, like, yeah. He focused on that, and then, you know, secondary antagonist Haschwalth, that should be a solid fight too. You know, it's kind of sad that fights we got with other Sternritters turned out to be more more fulfilling than a fight with Haschwalth, who is supposedly their leader and grandmaster. You know, with Shunsui, with Mayuri, with Kenpachi and Toshiro and Byakuya, with Urahara, you might have problems with some of those fights. But Kubo gave us a good, 7, 8, 9 chapters dedicated to each one of those fights. With the exception of, Gerald Valkyrie, that one was kind of but with Lilia, with Askin, with Pernida, we got some decent fights with them. Even fucking back in the Soul Society when we were fighting with the other Stern Ritters, like when Rukia fought against Asnod or Renji fought against Maste Masculine, we got some good solid fights out of that. But it comes to Haschwalth, and I really feel like Kubo wanted to do something really epic with him, but he's just like, oh man, I'm out of time. I got nothing. I gotta break it down to bare bones what I want to do with this character. Gotta leave a bunch of shit out, and that's where we're just gonna be. And I think that once again, adding that one last scene with him having the B embedded in the handle, it was like the last ditch effort of Kubo. Like, you know what? I'll throw that in there so people can fill in the gaps on their own. I got nothing else. I gotta move on. I gotta get this shit done. They're holding guns to my head, people. I gotta get moving. But yeah, do you think he would have a holy form? What would that look like? The balance powers. It seems like a cool ability if it was used against pretty much anyone except for Uryu. Because once again, we get the whole Pong thing going on, just bouncing it back to forth. I would like to see somebody actually genuinely fight against the balance powers and maybe try to find another workaround to defeat it other than just, I'm bouncing it back to you. Clearly there was a limit on the friend shield because the whole idea was the damage gets redirected to the shield and that gets all scratched up in my place. Okay, so the shield's basically absorbing the damage, so there has to be a limit to how much you can absorb. Here's an idea, just throwing this out there. Haschwalth versus Uryu. Haschwalth goes into his release form, and he has, like let's just say his friend shield changes into armor. Let's just say it changes into armor all around him that he's clad in. And that would work for Haschwalth because, like I said, he hasn't had any, inherent powers, so he's always had to rely on conventional weaponry, like swords and shields and regular bows and fucking armor. That would work for him. So he wears armor, and he still has the friend shield and the sword on him. He's like a knight, a holy knight. And then Uryu's like, I'm gonna go into my Let's Steal, and he goes, or his Voltstandig, and his Voltstandig is like, maybe it's very similar to the Let's Steal he used back in the Soul Society arc. It's like the same basic motif, it's just upgraded a little bit, and then we have this epic battle where it's just like, I'm just gonna release this arrow, and like this all volley of just death and destruction, and it could be very emotional. You could still have dialogue and shit, and maybe little flashbacks in between, like Uryu flashback to his mother, and when she died, and what his reaction was, and flashbacks to Soken, and stuff he was taught from his grandfather, and then Haschwalth could have flashbacks to Basby and Yuha, and they realize that, Uryu's convictions, the reason he's fighting is more noble, is more worthy of victory, because he is actually dedicated to his, he's avenging his parents and his grandparents. Meanwhile, Haschwalth is stuck with this fucking inner struggle of, I abandoned the only friend I ever had to join up with Yuha, and now Yuha doesn't view me as anything. He doesn't view me as anything more than an object, as we found out. The same as he views all the other Stern Ritters. I was not special. So then, at that apex, when Haschwalth decides that's when the fucking armor just shatters. And after Uryu just releases a big volley of arrows, and then, the armor shatters, and then maybe as Haschwalth is lying defeated already on the ground, then you can have Yuha come in and use the holy selection, because it's already the battle's already over at that point. That would be a little bit more emotional there. And don't say you can't cram that shit into one chapter. It would have been rushed. It would have been kind of weird to see, like, I activate my holy form and then it's defeated in the same chapter, but it would be better than what we fucking got. It would be at least one solid chapter dedicated to the damn fight. Damn straight. But yeah, man. I really wanted to like this character. It's a goddamn shame what happened to him, because I was really looking forward to what was going to happen here. I was really looking forward to it. To ending out the Bleach series and saying to myself, oh man, Bleach is over, but, we had some pretty damn cool fights. We had those fights with the Elite Sternritter, we had the fight with Yuha, we had the fight with Aizen, and that fight with Haschwalth, man, I can't believe that shit went down in Haschwalth. That was crazy. But I can't say that now. I can't say anything close to that. If anything, this was one of the most pitiful fights in the entire fucking series. It's the same. It harkens back to like Holly Bell fighting against Toshiro and Hiyori and Lisa. We get a three-on-one battle, really cool, but it ends with Aizen just showing up and be like, ah, fuck you, Holly Bell, and just cuts her in fucking half, and then she just falls and dies. Well, it doesn't die, but, you know, falls and is defeated. You know, it's the same shit here. It's just, you know, Haschwalth has like playing Pong, and then Haschwalth has him on the ropes, and like, oh, holy selection, I'm dead. Fucking pathetic. Fucking pathetic. Alright, well anyway, what do you guys think? Go crazy in the comments, because this is it. This is pretty much the last time we're going to talk about Haschwalth, because from what I understand, from information that I just got today, I don't know how valid it is yet. I've looked around on a few spoiler websites, but I don't know if anything's really accurate yet. But from what I can see, this chapter of Bleach, which is going to be released this week, it'll be chapter 684, is going to have the announcement that this series is going to end in the next chapter, which will be 685. So this chapter, as in coming out this week, as you're watching this right now, is going to be the penultimate chapter of Bleach. And then the next week is going to have like a big color page, you know, celebrating the end. Once again, I don't want to say it's like 100% guaranteed. Like I said, I haven't had a lot of proof on this yet. Mostly just messages I've gotten and hearsay, but it could very well be the case. So that's the case. That's what we're working with here. I know a lot of you are pissed off about this. I'm probably going to do a live stream or something to talk about this, because this is something I've already made like 2 or 3 other videos where I just stand up here and I'd be like, Bleach is ending soon. I really don't want to make another one, because I'm kind of getting depressed about it, really, that it's just every time we find out it's going to end, it just gets shorter and shorter and shorter, and now we've reached this point where it's going to end in the next 2 chapters, and it's like, why am I even here? Why am I even, like, doing this anymore? Like, I want you guys to understand, this isn't like the ravings of someone that's just, man, I really love Bleach, I love Bleach so much, and now it's ending, I just can't deal with it. It's not that, it's just that I'm looking at this story, and it's just, the way it's ending just feels so fucking rushed. It's like a train that, you know, is going on such an epic journey around the country, and it goes at a nice pace, and we get to see all the landmarks. It's just a nice trip, and then right before you reach the end of the voyage, it goes like 300 miles an hour and slams into the fucking mountainside. That's the impression I'm getting here. So I want to hope that this is not the way Kubo intended this series to finish. I really hope that Kubo wasn't sitting there being like, yep, this is exactly how I wanted to end it. Picture perfect. This is the way I saw Haschwalth going out. This is the way I saw Yuha going out. This is how I resolved everything I wanted to resolve. Picture perfect. No, I really hope that there's like his editors or somebody really high up in Shueisha for one reason or another is saying, you know, you need to hurry up and finish this because of X, Y, and Z. I'm not part of this industry. I don't know. But, yeah, anyway, Haschwalth, discussion below. Thanks for watching, guys. Love you all. Tekking, signing out. I gotta go prepare for the fucking finale, I guess. Didn't know that was gonna be what I was gonna be doing this week, but, apparently it fucking is.